So, a few weeks or months ago, I responded to a guy who claimed the Battle of Varna was the most important battle in European history. I called him out for being wrong because his argument was that the Byzantine Empire had collapsed by that point. The Byzantine Empire would last for another 9 years after that. I mean, he did have a point in that Varna allowed the Ottomans to take over the entire Balkan region, but the mistake about the Byzantines was just such a basic mistake, I had to call him out for it. But this raises an obvious question: what was the actual most important European battle, you know? And the answer to that question is the first one, because the first battle in European history shapes all the other ones, okay? It causes all the other ones. And I know for a fact it's going to be something to do with Rome, because pretty much every single aspect of European history has been completely shaped by the Roman Empire, okay? The most important battle in European history is obviously going to include Rome. If we go to the Wikipedia article of most important battles, the first two battles are literally just mass graves full of skeletons that we found, that with wounds that look as though they were probably battle wounds. And the first few battles in all of history over the whole world are just mass graves full of skeletons that we know that look like they probably died in battle. Like 10,000 years ago, the first recorded battle ever was fought in Kenya, and I say recorded, all the evidence we have left for it is just a bunch of skeletons that have been shattered, and it looked like it was probably a battle. So yeah, the first two battles in European history that Wikipedia lists, I'm not going to count because we know nothing about them except they were skeletons. And most likely one side in the battle was a bunch of illegal immigrants. Like, no, literally it was. So the third battle was a hypothetical battle that we don't even know if it exists or not. The fourth one, thank goodness, finally an actual battle, was the Roman-Etruscan Wars. Now, this is going to be pretty much the most important battle in European history. These were Rome's first few conquests. They took Rome from looking like this to looking like this. Had these wars not happened, the Punic Wars, which overthrew the great Carthaginian Empire, would have either never happened, or they might have been between the Etruscans and the Carthaginians. Of course, let's not be too hasty to declare that the most important battle in European history. During the Roman-Etruscan Wars, something happened. Namely, the overthrowal of the Roman monarchy. Now you might be thinking, well, it just changed the system of government, you know? Is that really an important battle in history? Yes. Do you know why? Because they replaced the Roman monarchy with one of the first democracies in the world. They made a republic. And I would argue that perhaps democracy was what allowed Rome to take over all the land they did. And the reason I say this is because democracies are usually more stable than dictatorships. Like, for example, if you just take a look at the world today, then on average, democracies are of course more likely to be stable countries than dictatorships. And of course, maybe this is correlation but not causation, but in things like dictatorships, okay, the best way to gain power is to effectively fight for it, okay? It's who has the best claim to the throne. But in a democracy, the way to gain power is to, get people to vote for you. And while it doesn't always work, people almost always choose the voting method rather than the revolution method, especially because the people are less likely to revolt, because they know that they have a way to vote out the ruler, and it gives them some hope, if not much, they might be able to solve their problems by democracy rather than revolt. And pretty much all of Rome's civil wars, I think, happened after it stopped being a democracy. And of course, you could argue this was because Rome got too big at the time, and because transportation and communication technologies weren't as advanced back then, obviously a big country is going to be very hard to manage. However, if you notice, the catalyst and start for all those civil wars was because multiple people had a claim to the throne of emperor. Therefore, I would argue that the overthrow of the Roman monarchy was actually one of the most important battles in European history, because it converted Rome into a democracy. And Rome wouldn't stay a democracy forever, but it would stay a democracy for just long enough to allow it to become a major power, one of the majorest powers ever. So when it comes to deciding the most important battle in European history, I can narrow it down to two options. Option 1, the Roman-Etruscan Wars, because they were the first few Roman conquests, and without them, Rome would have never conquered the empire that they did. Or option 2, we have the overthrow of the Roman monarchy. And the reason I'm considering this is because I believe that democracy makes countries more stable. I believe that it made Rome more stable, and allowed it to focus on conquering other countries rather than fighting each other.